is the whole point is whether or not abortion should happen no matter what. Like that's what the laws are going to be about. So if someone does something that I believe is by if someone believes is morally wrong in their own house, no one's telling them to do that. So keeping something just in case people do something that shouldn't happen doesn't make sense in my opinion. I mean, no one should try to do an abortion at home, but so that doesn't mean we should just outright keep abortions.
Are they then a murderer because they have no other option because of the state they live in?
What do you mean the state?
Just a question, like how good is the welfare system in the United States for children? How good is it?
I
Is it
can't
not?
answer that. Anybody else?
I can't say. I don't know.
My opinion
welfare
is
system.
sort of uninformed, but the general consensus among people is that it's pretty abominable.
Oh, okay.
Hold on, you have to define welfare system for me real quick,
Like,
and I'll be able to answer because.
Wait, did you say welfare or healthcare? Like, right or
No,
wrong?
like what? Like for children, like
I mean,
say
you have
if
to be an adult to get welfare, right? You can't get welfare under the age of
There
18.
is child welfare, but it's
I'm
different.
talking about
There's
that
a
one.
bunch of them,
Like
so you
for
have to define it.
Yeah.
Child
I'm talking
welfare. Child welfare is given to the parents still.
Yeah.
It's just registered under the child's name, I'm pretty sure.
It's meant to help parents pay for children's costs. Like, let's assume that a widow's husband has died, so you get a special child welfare check that basically says, "We acknowledge that your husband has died. Here's a little extra until you can have a higher pay raise or whatever, and so forth and so on." So if you don't have a certain high income, it's a pain to get, and if you are white, which I hate to say, but if you are white or have a white person's name, then you're not getting it, or you have to have like 5 kids.
Wow. That's
So
I feel like this is a bit beyond the
they
scope
just
of our
don't give you
topic,
welfare
though.
if you have too many kids.
Yeah, I don't think the welfare thing is terribly relevant.
It's just
No,
it's
just
not
saying,
very
like
relevant. But I did my best to answer.
how is the support for parents having kids? Because that's the main reason. Like, so if
I
you go,
think I get it now. So basically, it's
Yeah.
like you have a valid excuse to have an
Can I
abortion
interrupt real quick?
if you aren't having a high enough paid job.
Mind if I interrupt real quick? If you want to come join the server, we have a pro-choice and a pro-life text chat just for this event. So if you want to join the server, you can pop into either the pro-choice or the pro-life chat and talk with your fellow people and make your own echo chamber.
Oh wow.
Okay.
Oh wow, cool.
Hey, let's echo it up, people.
Just
Come
came
on,
in
echo
to just see
chamber.
that. Okay.
Wait, so where is this at?
It should be above the stage.
Choice chat, but I don't see the pro-life one.
It's in the there's
It has to be.
You have to have the rule to get it.
Yeah.
You have to have the pro-choice and the pro-life rules. You can get them in the add rules channel, which is right below the rules, right above topics and polls under the info category.
Thank you.
You
Basically,
can
just
DM me if you
scroll
want.
all the way to the top.
DM me for more information.
Will do. Thank you.
The DMs are about to light up.
Hey guys,
I'm aware of that.
I feel so.
Hey, so I just wanted to say on the previous point, when states have outlawed abortion, it's generally been an outlaw against doctors performing abortions. So in a state where it's legal, as far as I know, there haven't been restrictions on like who can get one in that state. It's just legal to perform one or illegal to perform one. But I had a question for the pro-life side, the anti-abortion side. With first trimester abortions, a lot of times it's a drug. It's not surgical at all. And so if we outlawed all abortions, including early first trimester abortions, where it's done by ingestion of a substance, do you not think that would just become like buying pot or cocaine? It would just become readily available in black market anyway. How would you go about making that illegal?
I'm
There really is no way to really make drugs illegal. Like
you can make them illegal.
There's no way to keep.
You can.
There's no way to keep them off the black market.
Yeah, because there's
Let me explain.
Let's have one person try.
There's really no way to keep people from getting those drugs.
Yeah.
But that's the same thing. For example,
Because like.
sorry. No, you can keep on.
So pretty much about that type of stuff. Like, you can't really keep those legal. Sometimes you can't really keep those illegal because like it goes around and around like over and over.
Yeah, because
Kind of
eventually somebody will sell it illegally.
You can't really stop the flow of illegal
Yeah.
substances. If anything, people are just going to
Yeah.
import it from Mexico or some other place. So
Yeah.
Right.
I'm
So I tend to be of the opinion that this should be a states' rights issue and not a federal issue, and states should be able to decide for themselves. But I feel like trying to make the abortion drug illegal is kind of a worthless endeavor, no matter what. That'd be my
Yeah.
position on it.
Can I
But at
push
least-
back on that some?
Sure, go for it.
With regard to
Yep.
it being a states issue, is in terms of like letting states handle who is a person and who isn't, we've kind of had a shaky history with that. I feel that that's a power that should be federal rather than state. Like, because if we have differences between states with who is
Well,
considered a person and who has rights, I think we may run into some issues.
Well, so
Yeah.
constitutionally, that's already how it's handled. So we do this. Like in Oregon, you can go do death with dignity, and they do not consider it murder if a terminally ill old person goes and has a doctor kill them. They won't be arrested for murder in Oregon, but you absolutely would in Nebraska. So states already, to some extent, do this. And I'm not saying it's necessarily the best way, but I feel like if both sides, like there's such a huge difference between California and Texas, if both sides are trying to force their view down the other side's throat, I think it'll just become a constantly flip-flopping issue that'll never be settled.
And I agree. I think this type of issue is never going to be probably resolved in the federal level. What's going to happen? It's probably just going to be an endless battle of court cases. Like, let's just say one side wins,
Just a giant loop.
the other one is just going to challenge it again. It's just going to be completely almost useless because it's just going to keep going back and forth, and that's why I think each state,
Can I-
more logically, each state is going to have to do it.
Yeah, Roe
because
v.
I don't-
Wade was a start,
Kind
but
of like,
Uh,
oh yeah,
if I can add something in, even this is kind of like fucking deflecting my own opinion, but even if all states do allow abortion, there's no way to really stop illegal abortions, because people in lower income areas will maybe not have enough money to get an abortion, so they'll maybe try to do it illegally, unsafe, and stuff like that.
Hey, so I used to be much more pro-choice than I am now. I'm much more in the middle of the issue at this point, but I used to use that argument quite a bit, and I don't have the sources offhand, but I was taken through a pretty long list of sources by a very pro-life friend who basically made me realize, like, it's true that some people did get illegal abortions when abortion was illegal, but the number was extremely small relative to the number of people getting abortions legally. Like, it's not a great. It didn't really work that way.
Oh, okay.
And-
That makes more
and-
sense.
Hold
And
on.
that's a-
With regard to the states' rights issue, though, I want to get back to that as well. It's true that we do that currently with some issues, and it's especially like the death with dignity stuff. But I don't think that that's a good idea, because generally speaking, with something as fundamental as, like, again, who is considered to have a right to exist, I feel as if that issue is something that is more widespread and sweeping, and that a nation should be relatively consistent on. This is the same kind of issue, and this is why I said that there's kind of a shaky history with this. This is the same kind of issue that we saw with slavery stuff, right? Is states with differing interpretations on what is considered a person with rights.
yeah.
I think that having like sort of a discrepancy between that, not only can it create complicated legal situations because of like interstate mingling, but it's also just kind of a bad look.
Yeah. Like, I see that.
So I'm gonna push back on that to some extent, or maybe not push back, but I'm gonna pose a question. So there were abolitionist movements in the South growing like exponentially at the point when the Civil War occurred. And I mean, the Confederate Army was giving black people freedom if they fought for the Confederate Army. I mean, the nation as a whole culturally was moving away from slavery relatively quickly too. And a ton of people died during the Civil War. So I think the fact that that broke out in a war while culturally it was already moving in the anti-slavery position and it killed a ton of people is, I think it's worth it to do for something like slavery, but for abortion where the nation is so divided on it and there is no clear like cultural trajectory, I worry about exactly that outcome, that it could break into something like the Civil War or something like the nation dividing.
So I don't want to get too, no, I
Sorry.
want to avoid that.
No,
Let's
never
not
mind,
get too
actually,
heavily
yeah,
into
no,
the
let's
Civil
not
War.
go off
Let's
topic.
stay away from that. That's a landmine. We're stepping on a different landmine right now.
Literally a landmine.
So the one thing though is that the point of what I was saying though is that it's not a good look when parts of the country have different outlooks on who is legally a person. It's not a good look, and it's also
Especially
like
with,
it leads to
relations.
it leads to complicated legal issues as well. Complications that could very easily be avoided by having a federal standard of what a person is. And that's also important at a federal level too, because who is a person depends on who federal rights apply to, right? If we have a different standard for federal and states' rights, or federal and state rights applying to an individual, we could run into shaky legal territory as well, not just with the intermingling between states. So I think that leaving up the personhood issue to states is an incredibly poor idea.
Yeah, that's a very,
Well, I'm not saying I think the point is that not saying that states should be the ones that decide it. I'm just saying that logically, probably the most realistic fact is that it's probably only going to come down to states' rights because of how divided our nation is. I just don't think in a very long time it will take for the entire nation to get a federal mandate that isn't challenged and isn't basically just completely flip-flopped in court every few years. That's why I think realistically, it's probably going to be only states that decide this for at least the next few decades, in my opinion.
Though the Roe v. Wade standard has been pretty long-standing.
Yeah, but as
Yeah,
trying to
well,
do that.
culturally,
have we already decided when a person is given the right to live?
What was that? Sorry.
Wait, what?
Wait, what was the question?
War Crime said something.
Have we decided? Have we decided when somebody gets the right to live?
That is probably what the entire argument is going to be over.
Yeah, pretty much. So my argument was
hold on, before we get off of that, I think Federalist was going to say something on the current topic we're on, and then we can move to that though very soon. So
okay.
I was just going to say when it comes to
right to live, I think that would probably be further towards the second trimester.
Hold on. Sorry, just now. What were you going to say, Federalist?
I was just going to say, culturally, I could be wrong on this. The data, my impression is that we're not gaining traction either in the pro-life or pro-choice direction as a country. It seems like we're still a pretty even 50-50 and no side is really winning ground, but it seems like the two sides are becoming more convinced of their own points. Like the country is moving more and more towards the ends. So I don't know if there is a solution that could ever be
pretty final though.
By what data has shown, there's quite a few of the northern states are more so pro-choice, while quite a bit of the southern states are more pro-life, where abortions are only allowed if the mother can't go through it, and the only time you can is about at least the average of 6 to 8 weeks, sometimes even lower. And the majority is neutral.
I just want to say I'm not giving a point. I'm just bringing up facts that Anti-Federalist. Currently 49% of U.S. adults consider themselves pro-choice, 47% consider themselves pro-life, and 5% have no opinion. I just wanted to point that out. This is on the Gallup poll, by the way.
So when taking those statistics into consideration, remember that's out of people who would genuinely take those polls and be serious. Although I do believe the statistics are there still.
I do believe the
I
nation is
would
roughly halfway split on this.
I would also like to put in the input and the reasoning behind pro-choice is behind the fact that while some people do believe that it's best to have the child, but you also got to think, what life would that child be put into? Like, would it be a lower class citizen? Would it be like a lower middle class citizen? Or would they be put up in adoption? And believe me, we've dealt with the adoption system before. It is horrible. And I honestly mean it's seriously awful. And the child wouldn't even have a good life if put up in adoption. I believe it would even be a worse life than just aborting it while it is still a clump of cells.
I guess the thing with that is, I don't know, maybe adoption might even, because anything can really happen. You don't really maybe in the future, one person will climb up from being an orphan to being a public figure, and people will see that as a story. There's always like one person who is in that situation that can really climb up from
Like some
being
mobile, yeah.
yeah, so
Well,
so you yeah,
So
so there's
keep in
always
mind that is optimism based on
you're not wrong
statistics
about that
Laura brought up
there.
earlier. I don't remember the
It's
exact statistics, but
how
certain
many
amounts
that
of, or it's a higher rate of
it's
yeah.
just with
orphans and such
the
are
adoption
normally
system,
sort of crime
it
rate.
restricts who's allowed to adopt. The adoption system extremely restricts who's allowed to adopt. Just like
Oh,
I'm going to keep it more so anonymous, but this is a true story where pretty much a child is trying to be adopted by a family member who is a cop and their significant other is a therapist. They're trying to adopt her, but they're down in the Florida line, and the child is in the Alabama area. The adoption system wants her to stay within the Alabama area so they could get money off that child instead of
oh
sending
my
it back
God,
down to family.
oh my God, wow, that's disgusting.
Yeah, it's the
Oh,
government,
That
at
is
least on that level, is they need
That
more funding.
sounds
They
pretty
get
horrible, but
given,
I don't
so
think that
they try and do
anecdote
stuff
is
like that.
really going to help us in particular on this topic.
I think
Well,
that I
so
think that more so.
It might be a good time to move more towards the personhood stuff, because I saw that at least Skeletal, I think, was trying to get to that issue. So we should probably drift back in that direction, because that's where the crux of this is going to lie. And then there's also like things like the bodily autonomy argument, which don't really rely on personhood, so we can address those shortly after we say pretty much all that can be said on the personhood
address
issue.
bodily autonomy as well.
like
All right,
before
so mind if I start on the personhood thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
So basically, my idea of it is personhood would probably make the most sense to start around sentience or when brain activity starts, because that's when you gain the ability to move around and there's a consciousness there now. Then cells just
So
there.
so basically about so when brain activity starts and when you can actually remember stuff.
Not when you can
Way
remember
too
stuff.
ambiguous,
That's
though.
different. That is
no, I think that's more like when you're around I think 4 years old is when you start really remembering stuff. But feeling things, I think around that time when they said with person.
4 or 5, yeah.
Yeah. I think remembering
mean,
is. I don't think it's remembering that's
Well,
the thing. Is to
with the
feel.
heartbeat, that's considered living, right? But also, of course, the mental aspect of it.
The fetus first moves in this, according to BBC, the fetus first moves in the womb around 16 to 17 weeks after fertilization. So just to give you an idea of how long that is.
my
So
issue with the
16
idea
to
of
17
using
weeks would be around second to third trimester.
my issue with using brain, like that's so, using brain development is still going to become a philosophical issue because, like, that could never be a scientific. I mean, it could be argued that the first 3 stem cells of a developing fetus are inexorably brain or become brain. I mean, putting a line on where do developing cells become specifically brain cells and not specifically brain cells, I feel like we'll just end up with the same argument.
Is it quiet or lagging?
I think it's quiet. Is what I'm thinking.
By what I know of, like, the majority of what they do is pretty much like the bloody hell, what's the word? They put like the gel stuff on the stomach and check to see if the bloody hell English. Pretty much to see if like the baby's in there and all of there. They do that there, along with checking like how far along and if it's still doing well and all that there. For brain scans and all that there, they really and truly don't do much of that. I know they have done MRI scan tests while the women are pregnant, and honestly, a lot of them don't recommend it. And that there is really true.
Alright.
Epic, are you okay?
No, sorry. It's there's a thing that there's a notification sound. I'm just gonna turn my mic off. Sorry.
I'm just trying to make sure you're okay.
Oh yeah, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Just
They have done pretty much like MRI scans and tests and all that there. And honestly, it could be Googled of the tests that they've done between variations of it can actually harming the baby and between how it looks. Because people always want to do it for like the picture thing, how they show you the images of when they like scan the stomach and all that there. They want to do that as pictures on there. The MRI is not good for both reasons. And for head scanning, like trying to see if there's any brain cells towards the pretty much clump of cells, dependent on what trimester it is in, it doesn't really function too well.
I wonder if you could talking back to like where the baby is like sent to if they're born. It's not if it's not possible to send them over states, it's not possible to send them over internationally, right? Like definitely that's not possible. Right? I'm just making sure.
Internationally, I don't. Me myself, I don't believe it's a like fully grand idea to like try to send it even while the woman is pregnant, because it could cause other kind of harm that could cause both the woman and the fetus in severe pain. Well, not really much of the fetus due to the fact that it doesn't even have like pain regulation, more so the woman.
Yeah, because I'm just considering because abroad they have better like way better like orphanage systems there.
Right.
So one issue with the debate about adoption when it comes to abortion specifically is our adoption system is super screwed up. That is for sure. But
I agree with you there.
People have a heavy preference for newborns. And so the waiting list for newborn children is really large. Well, it's really hard in the United States to adopt away a kid who's older, especially once they get past like 3 or 4, it becomes really difficult. So for abortion in particular, that is always going to be a newborn baby. And there's going to be much more demand to adopt it.
I honestly see that as messed up, because a child could be literally waiting there for, it could be waiting for weeks. It could be waiting for weeks, it could be waiting for months, even years till it's even a legal age. And even at that age there, you gotta think, like, how hard it would be trying to like get them like themselves like a job and everything like that there when they've been in the adoption system for so long, and they have to like get the money to be able to actually get themselves a roof over them.
No, absolutely. I
roof
think
over their
it's
head.
kind of worse. I think people don't want to adopt kids who've been in the adoption system for years because they're worried about behavioral issues because our foster care system
Yes.
is terrible. So it's like the kids who need the help the most are the ones that have the hardest time being adopted away, which is really kind of rough.
Right. Oi, are you trying to say something? It's showing green, but we can't hear anything.
I think the main problem about talking about this like issue is that this issue pro-life versus pro-choice is more like a cure, because I'm looking at this chat right here, and there's someone that said avoid sex if you can't afford condoms. And so I think, yeah, rather than just dwelling on this issue, it should be better that more governments do focus on educating people on this, on like preventing it rather than just curing it. Because while it's a problem, the pro-life or abortion, while abortion is a problem and we can't do much about that issue right now, I think it's better that we just make the number of people who have to do that less than what it is right now by educating people. It should just decrease. I think once the majority are educated, I think the states issue, like the maybe you do the abortion in certain states. I think that would be much easier to deal with. Um, because like you're saying like who where's the child born, and that's also a problem. But I guess where we can work on is just teaching everybody and making sure that there's enough to majority are educated, but no, sorry, there's somebody on the chat, majority
Right.
educated wants to take responsibility. Hmm.
The the main situation is with the education as well is the education English. I cannot speak it. I am sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
But the education system itself, they don't exactly teach further into like the intercourse situation as much as like maybe even some other states do, and even parents don't even want to bring it up because it makes them uncomfortable, and for some kids it makes them uncomfortable as well. For me, I've
That's
never really had that problem. I've always seen it as sort of a scientific sort of situation. But with intercourse knowledge, they are due to the lack of knowledge that most commonly kids go through is they use the internet. They will go to like porn websites and figure that out for themselves, which isn't good.
Yeah.
And also a majority is they want women to mainly use like like birth control, the needle, the the thing that goes into the vagina. Technically, the thing that goes into the arm doesn't work. It's mainly just period regulation. Because even the
Hey yo,
oh
I'm sorry.
Amelia around? Is Amelia all right?
So I believe that people, like, say we banned abortion, there's no abortions, like they didn't do it illegally. Somehow you found a way to stop everybody from killing their fetus or whatever, and like you had all these children that are in the foster care system because they don't get adopted. I would advocate, like, only in that scenario for the people who advocate against advocate for abstinence only sex education, or for no sex education to be in schools. They should be forced to adopt those children because they're directly responsible for the um, excess births, like the unwanted children in that system.
Mm. I somewhat get the point you're coming from. Go ahead, Sora.
This is going to be a super hot take.
To this guy in chat.
But obviously contraceptives are pretty widely available, but the birth rate outside of marriage, out of wedlock, tracks IQ pretty intensely. Like, obviously not for every individual, but on aggregate when you go across populations. I don't know if we're ever going to get rid of people maybe making foolish decisions, no matter how widely available or how good of sexual education we get. And the further marriage rates drop, and the further kind of the traditional social institutions for families falls away, I don't know if sex ed in school is going to fix the problem. I feel like it's still going to get worse as our culture shifts.
Yeah, this guy in chat, he said, you don't force people to adopt children because that relationship is forced. It has to be natural. I think in the like scenario I posed, where they somehow stopped like all of abortions from happening, that'd be like almost 500,000 kids per year, and there's only like 2 million or so waiting couples to adopt. So even if you found a way to like accommodate all those children in 1 year, you would eventually overrun the amount of like potential couples you would have to force people to adopt, or you'd have like literally children who have never gotten parents in. Like,
I think the argument, I don't think this is a very compelling argument. I don't really believe it, but I think the argument you would get from a lot of pro-life advocates would be that hopefully if people recognize there isn't an easy out and know they're going to have to live with the consequences of their actions, we'd see less unwanted pregnancies. I don't think that's true, but I think that's the argument, or the pushback you'd get on that argument.
Yeah, it's already pretty bad with like some pro-lifers. I don't really have a problem with them. I can understand the point of view where they're coming from. It's just it goes to the point to where people would literally be outside of abortion clinics and like threatening people when they've already like decided like, hey, either I'm getting birth control, that's option A, or option B is I've finally decided that I'm going to get an abortion because I wouldn't be able to take care of this child. And I don't want to go through the pain and going fully through with it. They're already dealing with the issue of already having to give it up. So pretty much like that's already pain in and of itself, and like people like fear mongering and saying like oh you're going to hell for aborting this child, you're a bad person, all of it. Like that there is not going to stop them from getting an abortion. All you're doing is like treating them worse and making them feel worse.
I definitely agree with that. I mean, I think most people generally would. And I mean, I've been in very close contact to. I'm in a really liberal big city, just to give you guys some context. But I've had close friends go through abortions, females go through abortions before, and there is a heavy psychological toll that takes place afterwards too. There is an aftermath to it that I think sometimes people aren't ready for or don't realize when they do it. There's a lot of cost to doing it. I don't know, making people's lives more miserable than they already are in bad situations. It's just a shitty thing to do.
Yeah.
I'm in the South, so it's not exactly like the grandest place with the situation as is, where I've literally done research within the area that I am in what their bylaws are for their ideologies of abortion. And so far, it's not the worst, but it's also not the best. Because the majority is the only way you could get an abortion is between, like, the first trimester and if the mother can't go through with it, as in, like, they will die if they go through with it. But it doesn't have anything about, like, if there are, like, if the person has gone through rape or if the person is a minor. Like, it says nothing about that there. Which, and truly, honestly, I don't agree with that factor.
Yeah, I don't agree with it either. That on like a human level. Although when I'm listening to really staunch pro-lifers argue, I feel like the only ideologically consistent position they could give, if they're saying that that fetus is fully a human, is that position. Unfortunately, like I don't know. I don't know how you can like rationalize consistently in the middle. I feel like you either have to be for it or against it, or not logically sound, I guess.
I had something I was going to say, then I lost it.
Wait, can I talk for a bit, or?
Of course.
Can I talk? Because I haven't talked. Yeah. So, generally speaking, I want to ask, what if the scenario is that their goal was to have protected sex, but let's say this was the moment where, like, I'm sorry, I'm really trembling, but where the condom breaks, or maybe I'm sorry, birth control pills doesn't work, like that percent. Do you think an abortion would be allowed, or should that also be like still go under the, like, oh, that's still murder because you intentionally had sex? Because what do you expect? What do you guys think?
I'd be a bit in the sort of
I
middle.
think it's the same thing. I think it should still be their choice either way.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm a bit in the middle about it because, like,
Because it wasn't
things can
intended
happen.
to fail, you know. So,
Like, yeah, things can happen. And if they're truly not ready to have a child and they know that they aren't ready to have a child, they have thought through the entire process of what they're going to do and they decided abortion, that's their choice. Because things like that can't happen. What's it called again? Birth control, that's the word. Like, birth control can become expired. And that happens sometimes and people don't notice. And, like, condoms can break. That happens.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not particularly pro-life, but because the panel seems very pro-choice, I'm going to do my best to argue devil's advocate, but Sora, I would think that if someone decided on the axiom or like the presupposition that a fetus is a full human life with full human rights from the point of conception, then they would not be able to say, well, it's okay if it was a situation where like a condom broke or something like that happened, because we're still responsible for things that are mistakes with like tort law and negligence and everything. And then I think if someone's okay with abortion, they're already going to be okay with abortion either way. So I don't know if you could change anyone's views based on their like axiomatic suppositions.
Big words. But let me tell you something right now.
They're like baseline beliefs. I mean,
Supreme Court next year, we're visiting that issue. We're gonna overturn Roe v. Wade. It's gonna be a great day in America. I'm telling you that right now. I'm calling it right here.
Hey, do we have a hard pro-lifer in here?
Sorry.
No, it looks like it. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So I want to tag some people out who have been in here for a very long time. So get some new blood in here. Thank you guys for being in here for how long you were, and I'm gonna just tag some people out. So I want to get some new blood in here. There you are. All right. So who has not been here through that? Let's get some more pro-choice people. Who is pro-choice? We have a lot of pro-life right now.
I'm pro-choice.
I'm pro-choice as well.
I'm pro-choice.
I'm middle.
Middle.
I need an ally up in here, Bella. I'm outnumbered.
Cuomo seems like a very extreme pro-lifer, so.
Yeah.
That'll make an interesting debate, though.
Yeah, I'm a reactionary. I'm a proud reactionary.
You know what? If you use the pro-choice and pro-life chat and you sound like an absolute badass in the pro-choice or pro-life chat, I'll invite you up here.
There you go. Incentivizing discussion. Very smart.
Hey, Cuomo, I have a question for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
So for early first-stage abortions where it's a pill and not a surgery, do you think it would be reasonable to make that illegal? And how would you go about enforcing it without it just becoming investigating people for miscarriages and just another war on drugs, impossible situation?
Question. Let me tell you, first off, obviously I'd be against that. I don't think that's a very hard thing to tell. But this idea, listen, I don't know too much about that, I'll be honest with you. But I think this product, I mean, like any other product, it can be banned. And I don't think there's a huge market for it, is there? I mean, if there's not, then I think we'd have a very simple time on a federal, state, whatever level to make sure that isn't being dissipated.
You don't think if we made it illegal that the drug cartels in Mexico would just start making it the next day and it'd be as easy to get as weed or cocaine is right now?
Well, that's simply a law enforcement issue, and that can be solved through a number of things. That we can change law, we can change our punishments for trafficking of that of that pill. We could increase funding for law enforcement. We could do all sorts of things. We could also have stricter immigration. Lots of things we can do to counter that.
That would be criminal justice.
It's very possible that it could still be distributed illegally or things like that. But I don't just because something could happen illegally, I don't understand why that means you shouldn't make it illegal.
Yeah.
Murder, for example, is illegal, but it happens anyway. And just because it happens, we don't say let's legalize it. Some drugs are illegal. Some drugs are illegal, and just because they're used illegally doesn't mean we legalize all of them. I don't understand why this being distributed illegally means we should legalize it.
Well, so that's why I differentiated the drug in the early first term versus surgical, because obviously people argue about illegal surgical abortions happening if we made it illegal. But with the war on drugs in particular, or with drug laws in the United States in particular, do you guys not recognize that we've not even been able to manage to keep drugs out of our prisons? It seems like it's been an abysmal failure.
I think there's a bit of a distinction between an abortion pill and cocaine, or abortion pill, marijuana, and those sorts of things. And I think if you want to talk about the war on drugs, I mean, obviously, in my opinion, I think it was just executed improperly. But this idea that we can't make a substance illegal and we can't make law enforcement go after, and that's a reason as to why it should be legal, I think that's ridiculous. At the very least,
it needs to be completely reformed in some way, one way or another. If you look at the stats itself, you'll see that in prison as of now, the majority are in for drug offenses, along with serious crimes like murder and etc. But I don't think it should be treated as the same crime as someone who murdered someone, obviously, but it fortunately is right now.
Yeah, but
If you look
at
at cocaine, whatever drug it is, honestly,
yeah,
it's
but
still being treated as a felony, which is disgusting.
Okay, let me ask
we
it.
also
Let
have
me
some
change.
people in there for like minor drug offenses as well.
Well, let me change the question a little bit. So you can induce a miscarriage early in pregnancy by taking high doses of ibuprofen. Do you think that the police should be investigating somebody to find out whether they caused their abortion by taking ibuprofen or whether they had a natural miscarriage?
Why not?
Nah.
It seems like that'd become an incredibly authoritarian and creepy country to have a child in general.
The way that you check that.
First off, for the police to investigate, there's got to be a report, right? Like that, they're not just going to go out and just do it. So maybe if someone else has this, obviously they do this super privately. Whoever this is, they're probably going to get away with it, right? That's their own body. They're doing what they got to do. But if there's a report, that adds a layer of credibility to it, which I think the police should report on and investigate.
I'm not really all too familiar, but at the same time, it's just good to also put in a factor that it's not only just that one woman, but you also have to add in factors of just how they are mentally stable in all this situation, because you can't really go into like just raising a child knowing that you are not prepared. Unfortunately, there are situations where people do marry without wedlock and all that type of stuff, but at the same time, like, sex without education really holds no premises. And like, stating people as murderers and stuff like that, it's kind of going over the edge, right? But at the same time, it's more that we have to understand where folks are really coming from, and it just all just stems from just lack of responsibility. And it's sad, but you can't help but put yourself in those people's shoes.
So you would agree with the rehabilitation? Okay, so you would agree with the rehabilitation over the incarceration?
Oh yeah.
Okay, I can agree on that. Okay, fair enough.
Well, so here's the thing, it seems like it's a little slow in here. So I just, I went to the stage chat. I said, hey, if you have a question for the stage, we can ask it. They can ask it. I think that'd be a good way to sort of get the audience engaged and create some better discussion. But now it seems that they're asking questions that aren't really relevant to this topic. But I actually, who asked the abortion pill question? I want to know who that was. I forgot. Sorry.
That was me.
Who was that? The Anti-Federalist. Well, can I ask you, and this is not questions like based on argumentation. I actually have questions about it. Tell me about now the legality of them. Is it different by states? Do a lot of people take them? What is going on with abortion pills in 2021? Is there any litigation? What's going on with it?
No, so every state, because of Roe versus Wade, as far as I know, has first trimester abortions, and the abortion pills are only effective in like the first 3/4 of the first trimester. So anyone going for an abortion really early in the pregnancy will be given a pill, like even by Planned Parenthood or whatever. And I believe it's legal in every state. It's when you start getting into second and third trimester abortions where things start to get much more varied, because it's much less clear in the Roe versus Wade decision.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Something, and this is a little different, but thank you for that, because I actually did want to know the status of those pills. But very recently, I'm sure you guys know, there's an infrastructure bill passed in the Senate. There's a lot of they voted on a lot of amendments, right? Republicans introduced a lot of them. One of them, it was non-binding, but it was that the Hyde Amendment should be protected. And for those in the audience that might not know what the Hyde Amendment is, it's a amendment that was passed in Congress by I don't know when, but it bans federal funding for abortions. So my question, it was defeated. This amendment actually passed because Joe Manchin joined all the Republicans. So my question to the members of the stage is, what are your thoughts on the Hyde Amendment? Should it go away? Should we keep it? Is it a good compromise? What do you
Can you
think?
repeat the basis of the amendment again?
So essentially, it's an amendment that bans federal funding for abortions.
Oh yeah, I'm against it. That's really dangerous territory right there.
In addition, I'd like to add with a question.
Yeah.
Apologies if I'm incorrect, but isn't the abortion pill correct as the Plan B pill?
No, it's not. So the actual early abortions, it's a much stronger pill than Plan B, and it's a different mechanism. You actually it induces a miscarriage, so you actually miscarry the child basically into the toilet, if it works.
Oh yeah, so back to Cuomo's topic. I say I wouldn't really support it because if there's no funding towards just things just of this nature, people can go out and I don't know, go to other countries to have this done or do their own DIY or
Or
something,
try
or even
doing it
just harm
themselves.
themselves. It's something you don't want to just close off. And on top of the matter, if it's if the child is born and the parent isn't really ready, that relationship is not only like disregarded, but it's toxic. And I've seen
Yeah.
like orphans and stuff like that go out and fight police and just go on huge rampants. I'm not saying this is something you could solve by getting rid of the child or anything, but it's just something that just the relationship when it comes to the mother and child and father as well is something that you can't disregard. And if you're not ready, just don't try, because that's just raising another hell, and it's not good.
I'd like to add on to the other reasoning of what WRK said was, such as that there, if you're doing high restrictions, whether that be any type of surgery, abortion, or even drug-wise, if you're doing high restrictions on that there have been states who have done high restrictions on certain things, and it's gotten more dangerous. The stats on what it was before against what it was now after the restrictions have gone higher. And with that fact of the matter, as he said, people would be trying to go to other countries to try to get the abortion done, or even trying to do it themselves, which is dangerous in the fact of the matter where they could kill them. They could kill themselves. That it's not the safest.
I also would like to add to the argument of WRK and Grey Night Wolf, because I think that government should be in a way catering for right, for their citizens, and especially for their safety. I think also as well that I agree that aborting kind of solves, in a way, not as a whole, because strained parent and kid relationships are real, right? Where in the sense where the parent didn't really want the kid, but they couldn't have the abortion. But also, if they put the kid up for adoption or for a foster home, it's not guaranteed that the kid would be granted a safe environment to grow upon. So I think that with abortion, the future kid would not have to grow up with the presumably maybe rough childhood, because they know that their parent doesn't really fully want them, and where their adoption or their foster parent also don't really help them. So I think in a sense, abortion kind of limits the pain, but because I don't think if the parent isn't mentally ready, or either they're not ready with the money, because obviously raising a kid is not only expensive, but also not a lot of people are they expect to have the kid, people won't know how the kid would turn out. So I think that's why abortion should be justified, and that's why funding for abortion should
And
else to add on, or
I know you can go.
I don't fully understand what so strained relationships and things like this
Yeah.
could certainly be an issue. I don't understand why that isn't so. The most common pro-life argument is that it's murder to
Yeah.
abort a baby. Murder seems like a far stronger, carries far stronger moral weight with it than a strained relationship later in life. So I don't still understand how this would, or like this seems like something that would maybe boost a pro-choice case, but I don't understand
Mhm.
how it argues against the idea that abortion is murder.
Yeah, if so, the pro-life people in chat, I'm assuming you're fundamentally like your foundation is that you consider the fetus at any stage of development a fully independent human person, right?
It's a human.
It's not.
I wouldn't call it independent, but
I wouldn't say independent, but at the same, it's alive. It's alive.
Yeah.
Well,
It's alive.
sure. I mean, a 3-year-old isn't independent. So,
yeah.
Like really. So okay. So yeah. So if they believe that it is a living person worthy of not being murdered, then it's kind of like if you have a bad relationship with your parents at 3, can they kill you to save you the pain of growing up with a bad relationship? It doesn't work.
That's a pretty extreme comparison, but it's the same idea.
Yeah.
That the logic follows there. Yes.
And it all comes down just like, unfortunately, just the responsibility of some individuals that they can't take up just the premises of how to take care of a child, or they're just not willing to. And on top of that, like just also bending of it, like when it comes to kids being put up for like adoption and stuff like that, I've watched documentaries where some people would adopt children, and the rule about adopting, I think it's like you're supposed to like keep them from less than 2 weeks, because if you have them for more and you drop them, it literally scars them. And I hate like this situation that those have to be put in, but it's just something that just like I said, I'm really for this sex education stuff, but at the same time, it really boils down to just who is willing to just buckle up. Are you willing to buckle up? That's literally it.
This isn't exactly related, but they're in chat. I've seen a number of times people bring up subjects of like, why are there so many men talking in the chat? Why are there not as many women? Could someone give me an argument for why men cannot debate this issue? Or is there anyone in here who's willing to argue for that? Because the way I see it, like you could take that.
The people on the
argument to
stage
conclusion.
seem like they have an IQ above like at least 100, so I don't think anyone will. But if there is someone who want to entertain us, then go ahead. But I don't think anyone will.
I'll entertain this.
Okay.
But kind of
like
like
a devil's advocate or actually.
Can I explain the situation and why?
Okay. Yes.
The situation and why they believe men shouldn't have this argument is due to the fact that they aren't the ones who are pretty much dealing with the child. They aren't going through the pregnancy. They aren't actually dealing with the pain, the emotions, the like premature depression, all out there. So they don't believe that men have like the right to say anything on abortion.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. To me, the logical conclusion of that to be a black person can't talk about someone in a third world country because I don't know what it's like to be them, and a rich person can't talk about a poor person, like etc.
To be
right.
Why that logic is harmful in politics.
Well, and to be fair, like as a male in the United States, I can agree and decide to have a child with a woman, even that I'm married to, and 3 months in after planning a pregnancy, she can go while I'm at work and get an abortion, and without me having any foreknowledge, and my child I was expecting is dead, and I have no choice in the matter and no recourse. So I feel like it does affect men, and it is pertinent to men, just as well as women. We're just not in control.
With that situation, sorry.
I'm sorry. I want to add on. I want to clarify that I'm not against men having an opinion. I'm just saying that I think that this is more heavily on the topic of women because they are the one conceiving, but it doesn't mean that men cannot have an opinion. I think they totally can, and especially in the scenario that Anti-Federalist just said, I think I totally understand that, especially when you are in a couple situation, you're married or you're in a relationship with someone, and you were expecting the baby, I really do think the person carrying the baby should be discussing with you beforehand, like deciding on the abortion. Like they should be talking to their partner to have a middle ground. But I just think that because they're the one carrying, this is kind of more of a argument that women have an opinion on. But it doesn't mean that men cannot have.
I agree with Sora. I agree with Sora as long as the man is respectful and speaking about the debate and not like harsh, like going on harsh about it. As long as they're respectful between the debate.
I would say that applies to everyone, and I'll clarify that I'm not saying that it should only be men talking about it. I was just looking for an argument for why it's not.
Here's
For
my
why men
question,
can't.
though.
But
But here's my question, though. Why should
Mhm.
someone have to be respectful in a debate when which the other side is arguing and saying it's okay for the murder of children? I don't think you need to be respectful. I'm not saying I won't be or that, but I'm saying if you're not, I don't really care. And to be honest, sometimes maybe you should be a little disrespectful. That's a great way to get your point across because then it tells you, hey, by the way, I have a personal problem against you. You need a debate like that sometimes, not all the time, but on an issue like abortion, of course you've got to do that. And vice versa. And here's the thing: pro-choicers do it to pro-lifers all the time. They demonize us. So why can't you do the exact opposite? Call them what they really are. They are advocates for the killing of children. That's what it is. And the fact that if we decide to do that, we're labeled as it's disrespectful. You're not being very principled. That's stupid. And that's the reason as to why this is sort of a general argument as to why the right, why conservatives lose, because we're not willing to get down in the mud and we're not willing to demonize our opponents.
Well, okay, so Cuomo, I'm going to push back on you on that. So, and this is like the only issue in politics where I have no position and can't make a position. But obviously, I think it's obvious to everybody that at the point of contraception where it is 6 cells, like literally whatever that would be, like an hour after contraception or even 10 minutes after contraception or whatever, that is obviously not more sentient or more aware than a fly that you swat on the wall. But also at the point of it being birthed, that is obviously not a human. Like that obviously is a baby. So both extremes don't really make sense, but there's also no way to delineate anything
baby
in
not
between.
a human? That because you said it's a baby, not a human. Could they not? Isn't a baby a human? I don't think that really makes sense.
Yeah. No, I'm saying both. The extreme points of pro-life and pro-choice are the only things that are logically consistent, but also neither of them make sense.
Well, I mean, but you just said they're the only logically consistent parts. So how do they not make sense? Maybe you don't agree with them. That's one thing, but they are logically consistent, which means by definition they make sense, right? So,
When you
I don't
frame
really
it
know.
as pro-killing a baby, though, you're framing it as in causing human suffering, like murdering. And when it is at the point of 6 cells, at the extreme
I actually
early
do
end
think
of
it causes
pregnancy,
human
it's
suffering.
obviously not causing
I do
that
think
kind
it
of
causes
trauma.
human suffering, not just to that innocent life that has just been abrogated, but I also think to society writ large. When we have a society where it tells you, "Hey, women, it's okay to do that," it creates a moral hazard. It's state sponsored degeneracy because we can get knocked up by anyone. We'll be okay because we'll be bailed out by getting an abortion. When you do those sorts of things, that does create very negative real world implications, not only for at the end of the day, right, that baby inside the woman, but also for society in general. So yeah, no, I actually do think it has very harmful consequences.
I have just a question for you.
Go ahead, sir.
Are you? I would imagine the answer to this is no, but you're not against the rights of women to have autonomy over their own body? I would assume you just place the life of the child as a higher moral weight than the rights of the
Well,
woman.
I mean, obviously, a natural consequence of being pro-life is that you violate this specific part of their autonomy to kill a baby, whatever. I don't really care what you call it. They say it's controlling a woman. Yeah, sure, we're controlling women to not kill an innocent life. But yes, to your question, it's about that life, which is the reason why we want to control your ability to, not terminate it.
Yeah, there's
That
plenty of other
doesn't
things.
sound right. That doesn't control a woman's right in order is whether or not they can marry and do a full-term pregnancy or to either get rid of a pregnancy or has to be a choice to get pregnant, it doesn't sound right. It just sounds like they're taking away somebody's human rights.
Yeah, but I mean, we control men's rights all the time, and we tell them they can't go down the street and murder everyone they see. Like that's an extreme example, obviously. Yes,
that's for everybody.
it's extreme.
You can't just go
Yeah,
out the
that's
street
my
and
point.
just start shooting if you want, because you can't just specify, oh,
And-
men can't do
Okay,
this.
but
we're
like
controlling men.
killing something that's in you and killing something that's just
There's
out
always a
there,
cause
like,
and
that's different, isn't
reaction.
that?
I
They're
mean,
both
okay.
human life.
I would like to ask both sides a hypothetical, but if you had a friend, he's kind of a loser, but you've been friends with him for a long time, dropped out of high school, can't really do much, and you agree to let him stay on your couch for a weekend, and then 3 weeks later, he's refusing to leave. He's saying, I have nowhere to go, I can't leave, bro, I'm not leaving. To both sides, do you think you have a right to kill that person at that point?
That's
Oh
different.
no, no,
No,
no.
could you-
I
wait,
don't
so could you
think I have a
repeat
right
the
to kill
question? I
them.
didn't hear that.
To leave your house is different than abortion.
Life begins at consciousness.
Well, I mean, like, hardcore trespassing, to the point where you have told him, like, leave my house, you're trespassing, and he says, I'm not fucking leaving.
It's not to the point you should kill them, but maybe just call the authorities. It's not.
Right, because they're not a clear and
You get
present
to the
danger to
point
your
of killing
life
somebody?
in the house, right? If that's
Listen.
because you said it's someone you know, right? So obviously they're just saying they're not going to leave. They're not going to try to kill you. When you have an armed robber going into your house, you don't know what their motives and intentions are. So of course you see them, you shoot them. With this guy in question, not necessarily you would call the authorities. They drag him out by his feet. That's how you do it.
Well, I'm kind of arguing for your I don't agree with your axioms, but given the pro-life people's axioms, I feel like it would be kind of the same thing. It's like they're not saying you have to do anything with your body. They're trying to say that you can't take the life of what they are considering a separate body.
How do you determine whether or not somebody is life? It just sounds like
when you abort something, usually you don't have a malicious intent in mind. If you are not able to take care of a child and you're pregnant, okay, you should abort it. You shouldn't be forced to carry it for 9 months and put it up for adoption.
Ben has spoken.
Back to Cuomo. You mentioned how it was murder, right? If you look up the definition of murder, you'll see that murder is heavily premeditated, right? So not in all cases of abortion is it premeditated.
That's not necessarily true with murder, but go ahead.
Well, I mean that's like the definition of it, actually.
How is abortion?
But
also like
when you plan to kill someone, you think about it probably a couple days before, right?
That's not
Do you
always
not with
true.
abortion?
I wouldn't say all
Go ahead.
cases,
But
right?
that's not really the spirit of your
Cuomo.
question.
Hey,
so-
Cuomo, I have a question for you, man.
Yeah, what's up?
So I heard you earlier mention degeneracy.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, so what did you mean by that, dog?
So when we talk about degeneracy, these are, activities or, things that a person does that are degenerating, right? They weaken the mind, they weaken the soul, they weaken the spirit.
Aren't you on Discord debating about abortion, dog?
That's not on the same level as things like
I mean, come on, man. Like what do you
taking
like?
things like cocaine or having, like gay orgies or those sorts of things. I mean, if you want to,
cocaine's good for the immune system.
You're on Discord, so I mean, like when you're talking about degeneracy, you need to kind of like take a look in the mirror real quick. So I mean, you guys can continue this. I just want to
part of the comparison. I know you might have an IQ in the double digits, but when I'm talking about degeneracy, it refers to things that are a lot different from talking on Discord. There might be other words to describe it in a negative light, but it's not degeneracy. So do you understand that, or should I repeat it slowly?
No, I'm just saying, dude. If you want to talk about degeneracy, I mean, come on. Like, I mean, your ancestors would look at a Coomer behind the computer and like be ashamed. So I mean,
this
I just
isn't
want to
adding
point it out.
anything to it.
You just mentioned Coomer. How does being on Discord make you a Coomer?
Can we get back on topic?
Yo, Cuomo.
Could I ask a
Yeah,
question that's
I
actually
think we should
could I
go
ask
back to
could
the
I ask a
topic.
question also? Could I ask a question that's on topic? All right. So you're pro-life, right? Which means that you believe that killing babies is murder. How is a clump of cells
probably maybe the size of my fingers, equivalent to a human baby that has a consciousness.
I'll
How-
ask a return question to that. Where so you're saying that the clump of cells, right, like at the very beginning, is not a human person. At what point does it become a human person?
When it has consciousness. When it
When
has
does it have
consciousness.
consciousness? When does this clump of
Around
cells
8 weeks.
have consciousness?
Around 8 weeks.
So you could point to a baby, or not a baby, sorry. You could point to a clump of cells and tell me that doesn't have consciousness, and a minute later it suddenly obtains consciousness. I don't understand.
No, because a clump of cells smaller than my finger doesn't just automatically turn into a baby. It takes a
So how
month,
does it?
weeks,
How does it take?
weeks to months.
No, he's
At what
saying
point
that
is
at
it a baby?
7 days.
Life begins at consciousness, and consciousness is subjective. So how do you have an objective standard of what is life?
Explain. Be more precise. What do you mean in that case?
Like we can agree that like life begins at consciousness, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, what
Yeah.
point does consciousness begin? Because like scientific studies have yet to actually like describe when that begins.
So, in my opinion, as the other sage said, maybe around 8 weeks. 8 weeks, I would say.
Okay, so how do you determine what's 8 weeks then?
But also by looking at how many weeks have passed since I guess since they fucked.
Yeah,
that would determine how long.
Right now, for example, in my state, they go off of the last period instead of the time of when you had sex.
That's what a lot of states go off of, which is why a lot of people say 8 weeks is the determination for when a fetus, can be born from an embryo. When an embryo changes to a fetus. At the same time, doctors are not allowed to you're not allowed to get an abortion if you're above 12 weeks. So in that 12-week period, well, in some states, in a 12-week period, some woman can get an abortion within that time frame, while others, you probably can get something less or based on what you're saying.
I would just like to add on. So the whole point, like everyone trying to find out consciousness, 8 weeks and all that, can't we all agree that at the end of the day, everyone's just trying to find an easy way out of not saying this is murder or that is murder? We're trying to find like the smallest form to, I guess, figure out an scapegoat to not make ourselves look like the villain, but kind of make ourselves kind of look like we were somewhat the victim of the situation.
I think you're
Because
right.
at the end of the day, like it's life. The consciousness really doesn't, like the consciousness factor. Even as a cells know what they're doing. The structure of our human body is the most amazing thing known to man. Like our blood, our endorphins are pumping. Like there's whole systems for all this. Like your cells know what you're doing, but it's only till then that we, the human, decide, hey, you know what you're doing. You don't? Okay, then no, never mind.
Well, I mean,
even
the
though
cells of a fly,
alive,
the cells of a fly are following a very precise genetic encoding. I mean, the cells of flies know exactly what they're doing. So if you swat a fly, should I bust in with the SWAT team?
Nah. Well, it's kind of advanced, but you could if you wanted to.
I don't know who's against abortion in like this stage right now. I don't know who's with it. I just feel like the other stages like pro-choice, I guess. But I feel as if you want to help, like, if you want to lessen abortion or lessen the chances of women getting abortions, have the like I can see put like petitions and try to push better sex education to younger kids and even to people like maybe all the way to college because there are some schools who don't even teach sex education or don't go into detail to help kids use protection in high school or even in middle school to help people realize that protection is very important and so is getting tested very important. But if you want to like help abortion like go down or not have abortion be so common against people, give more resources to people. Give more resources to young mothers, to teenage pregnancy, to teenagers who are pregnant. You have to give more resources if you want to get what you want. Because currently the United States is funding the police more than
Sage,
they
I have a
are
question
funding
for
a
you.
lot of other things. Yes.
I
So
completely.
you mentioned young mothers specifically.
Yes, I did.
You would agree though that like rhetoric is kind of like like discriminatory towards like young fathers as well, right?
What I mean
Because like
young
not
mothers,
every dude who gets a girl's pregnant runs
I mean it
away.
as like a general term.
Yeah, I mean, but even as a general term, you'd say that's wrong because that assumes that the men that run away whenever they get a girl pregnant.
Young mothers doesn't mean that. It just means women
I mean,
who are
it
young.
doesn't that mean young mothers? Like, can't you just say young parents? Why do you have to specify on the mothers?
But the thing is, mothers are the ones that are getting pregnant. Fathers aren't the ones getting
Yeah,
pregnant.
but it's still your kid though. Like just because
It's
you
still
don't
the father's
stay
kid,
and you
but
run away.
but the father is not the one with the baby or a clump
Yeah,
of
no, the
cells
father's
in
the
their
one who's
body.
expected to work a 9 to 5 to provide for the mother and the child and has to succumb to that. I'd go through pregnancy before slaving my life away to provide a healthy life. Like I'd argue that's worse in most sense.
What do you mean, like
Like, for
explain.
example, there's a person I know who got a girl pregnant. And instead of going away to the next town, he stayed with them. But he had to bag groceries for extensive hours. I'd argued I'd rather go through pregnancy and sit on a couch than have to bag groceries all day long. Like, young parents would be a far better term instead of marginalizing men.
But also when it comes to but also one thing I would like to say, by the way, I'm a man myself. When it comes to young fathers, if they do not want to deal with their life being ruined financially because then they're gonna have to get a job and work a 9 to 5 to support family, then maybe they
That's a
should.
stereotype, and that's an assumption.
Wait a minute.
If you want to go on like Cuomo's turns, that's technically promoting degeneracy and just running away from your problems. Because it's the assumption that it's normal to just run away from your problems
I'm not
instead
saying
of
that's
actually
normal. What
solving
I'm
them.
saying is,
There's no responsibility. There's the responsibility factor. No one takes responsibility.
What I'm trying to say is that if men don't want to work a 9 to 5 job, then maybe they should ask the person that's pregnant if they should tell the person you should get an abortion in that case.
Yeah,
That's
I'm saying
what
it should be
just trying to say.
abortion should be consensual. Like it shouldn't. But in some states, you can have a woman just run away and get an abortion because it's technically her body, her choice. But the problem is that's another person's child.
Yeah, it happened to me in California. But
released a couple years ago.
Usually, both.
I just want to point out, like, you got off on the fact that I said
Here's the
young mothers,
problem with
other
you
than like
dumb
all the
liberals.
other stuff I said in the comments that I said.
No, please don't call me a liberal. I'm not a liberal.
You are a liberal. You
I'm
don't
not a liberal.
understand
I'm a
how
leftist.
Yo, the only liberals in the United States today are
You don't
libertarians.
understand
Let's
how
just get on
rights work,
topic.
buddy.
Let's get on topic.
I'm not a liberal. I'm not a liberal.
Keep supporting Biden, you dumb fuck.
I don't support Biden either.
I have a question. 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 I have a
What's up,
question.
Float?
What if? Just hear me out. What if the baby didn't want to die? What about that?
Wait, what? Like, say that again?
I think Flo raises a point, which is that as
Yeah, what
Ronald
if the
Reagan
baby doesn't
said,
want to die?
I've noticed that everyone who's for abortion has already been born. So, it begs the question, if your mother was contemplating abortion, so you travel back in time, and she was thinking, should I get it or should I not? You would want her to not get that abortion.
I don't know about
So
that.
when it comes to a baby in quotes not wanting to die, most of the time, I don't think what a baby thinks is as nearly valuable as what what a mother thinks in this case, because.
Hey, what is it? But like, no. But adding on to what Cuomo said, I kind of go against the fact on, even though if the child was to be alive, it also lays down the factor. Like I said before, the mother, the child might even grow up even knowing that the mother didn't want him or her in the first place. Didn't want him or her in the first place. Now that relationship is already toxic, and now, depending on the situation of where the mother is or everything, you also have to lay into factor, like if, like, for instance, poverty, right? Now that's also another layer on top of that. So there's so many things that can go into adding in just to help, I guess, season the topic. But at the same time, you're all about, I guess, the government coming in to save you, the government being your superhero. But this is the same government that restricts again, that restricts women to do what they want with their body. And I understand most people will say, what about the men that also have something to say? I also agree. Like Anti-Federalist said, if my wife went ahead and got an abortion without me knowing, yo, I would be devastated. The relationship that I know is tarnished. There's nothing to add to the relationship. If we were to build on that relationship, I promise you, it would be the most toxic relationship, and I wouldn't even want to be in that relationship. The fact that my wife went behind me to go get an abortion without even like talking to me or anything is it's really sad. It shows that either you're scared of me, or you just don't want to listen to what else I want to add into the conversation.
I mean, it was.
Yo, let Anti-Federalist speak, dog.
Wait.
So
I saw someone raise a good point, and I think they should speak. It's someone who's muted. Their name was like something, and they raised a good point, and I think you should let them speak. Yeah.
So it was fair, kind of, because I was insanely angry, and I had to move states. Like, I had to get away from that situation. But I mean, it's not that uncommon.
This actually happened to you, dog?
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't
Holy
my wife.
shit.
It was a girlfriend. But
I
was violently pissed off. Like, I just had to get myself out of there and away from her. But
dude, that chick should be in jail.
But well, okay. So for the pro-life people, I have a question for you guys. So the University of Pittsburgh, just like last week, released that thing where they were talking about using fetal tissue from 42-week aborted fetuses, which is 2 weeks past term. So it's not. There are states where some insanely late abortions are occurring right now. So do you think it's better to cling ferociously to the contraception being the point of life, or do you think it would be better to try to go for like only in the first trimester or something that's more politically feasible in the United States today?
So what do they want to do with these 42-week aborted fetus tissue?
They were trying to solve some kind of kidney disease or something.
If you want to push for laws and something, you should probably start with ones that you have a better chance of actually achieving. But that doesn't mean that you should change your belief and try to hold that life doesn't start until like the second trimester or something, or consciousness or whatever.
This is honestly
that would be lying. I would still hold that life begins at conception.
This is honestly a very good question, because
could I respond to what Work said though? Could I respond to what Work said, please?
Sure.
All right. So when it comes to what you said, I completely get you. You know what I mean? It is. If a girl got an abortion and the boyfriend wanted the baby, that is devastating. I get you. I hear you. But at the same time, actually, no buts. It's sad. But the woman didn't want the woman didn't want it, and I know it's sad, but the woman didn't want it, and she got an abortion.
No.
Yeah, you can't really defend it like that, though.
No, you're not. No, you can't go as.
Shut up.
You can't really defend it. You can't defend it like that. So I can make a terrible argument to
you don't want.
Listen, if you force a woman to go through a pregnancy, you're also in the wrong, because she doesn't want the pregnancy.
Yeah,
I can make an argument.
I can use the same argument just I am 100% pro-choice. I totally agree with it. But the fact that this man's girlfriend literally, he gave a personal anecdote, and you personally say to him, "Oh yeah, well it's her choice." No.
The woman didn't want to go.
You should not do.
No.
I'm not.
I just want to jump in here real quick to say that, in all fairness, at the time I was young. I was 20 years old, and I was not a great boyfriend. And she probably had some very rational reasons for doing what she did. I was mostly angry that she told me she wanted to have the kid, and we kind of planned around it, and then she went and did what she did. But it wasn't an amazing situation.
But when it comes to what he said, the woman is wrong. She should have told the boyfriend. The woman is wrong. She should have told the boyfriend. But you cannot force a woman.
I would say that, but in order to get the abortion, they should have both parties sign, because you can't have an abortion where one person wants it and one person doesn't, because you need both people to create the kid in the first place. You can't just say because one person is the one who holds it that they get to hear your say.
I would say it would depend on the situation.
Did anybody else hear me scream like a girl? I just realized we hit 192 members, so I screamed like a girl.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Personally, I agree with that statement because rape happens, sexual assault, etc.
Yeah, I mean, rape is different. I mean, if you rape a person, like you void all legal rights to the child.
Yeah, we all
like
know
I think
this
that's
one.
that's pretty common sense.
I think if you rape someone and they do have the kid, you should totally be obligated to pay like triple child support at the very least
Well,
after
if
prison.
you rape someone, you should be
Give him the
jailed.
death penalty.
The whole thing about making
Death
two
penalty for
death
rape.
penalty. Yeah.
Base Cuomo.
The whole thing about making two people sign in order so a woman can get an abortion, it doesn't sound right because, like, there are so many teenagers who get pregnant either mistakenly or just for some other reason, like either they didn't use protection or they used protection and still got pregnant. Whatever the case may be, making two people sign just doesn't feel like you're doing the right thing. It just feels like you're forcing.
Sage, I'll say this to you.
No, it kind of sounds like you're doing the right thing.
I'll say this to you, Sage. I was in this situation a couple months ago where I thought my girlfriend was pregnant, and you know what? Instead of like running away from the problem, I was in the trenches, ready to be like, "Oh shit, I'm gonna have to work a 9 to 5 to go do this," because that's what a real person does. But here's the thing. It's that if that was going to be my child, I have as much say as the person as my girlfriend. But you can't just go and run away because it's your body.
You're playing mine.
No, but relationships are 50-50. It's 100%. And it has to equal to 100%.
Right.
Okay, hold on. Can I get in
basic
here just for a
math
second?
right there.
I can use your argument to justify rape, by the way.
Okay, have you guys ever?
That's not a relationship. That's that is not a relationship. I'm sorry.
I'm not kidding you. I can use your argument to justify rape.
I think
bro.
That's not a relationship. I'm sorry.
Have you guys ever?
But also,
seen the
I do not justify
statistics?
rape is horrible, by the way. So I'm not gonna.
Oh shit! Yeah.
Have you guys ever seen the statistics on how many fathers are raising kids
You're
that are
playing
not really
Minecraft
theirs,
in
but
the
they
cave
think that
looking
they're
for
theirs?
diamonds.
That chick could always just go say,
Oh, yeah.
actually, I got knocked up by this other dude, and just switch who the dad is to get the
DNA
sign on the
test,
piece of
yeah.
paper.
What if we required some form of evidence or proof? That's not too hard to regulate.
You'd have to do paternity testing, right?
I mean, yeah, and then you also and then if it finds out that she lied, you put the bitch in prison.
Yeah.
That's a little no, that's a little.
Nah.
That's good.
Equality.
Here's the thing: I'm as pro-choice as it gets. But if you fuck someone over like that, you deserve to go to prison.
Prisons like are already overpopulated and are not cared for enough.
Who cares? Crowd them in.
We don't put women in
No,
prison.
man,
in
no.
general
He
in this
said
society.
crowd 'em in.
That's already an issue itself. So.
Putting more
The
people
one-
in prison
okay.
for something stupid like that, it doesn't make sense.
Those
Also-
Duke
Oh, yeah,
lacrosse
no,
girls
actually,
who got
better-
those dudes
Listen,
locked up
hear
for
me
a
out,
lie
hear me
are in
out.
prison.
Hear me out.
Wait, what?
If you were to force, if you wanted a
Oh,
woman
no.
to go through a pregnancy, right? You're in a relationship, and the woman doesn't want the baby anymore, but you want her to have the baby. You want her to give birth and go through the full 9 or 8 months pregnancy. What kind of relationship is that woman going to form with the child once it's born, knowing that she didn't want it? She doesn't want
Give it to the man. The man wants it. The man wants it.
I'd be
She has
fine
no
with
point.
being a
It's
single
not
dad
fair.
right now.
We've
But
had
then,
this
but then the
argument
child
earlier.
would
We already said
probably
this is
have
a
to live
toxic
their life.
relationship.
Yeah,
The
we
child
already-
is probably going to have to live their life without a mother in that case. I mean, unless it's
You're playing Minecraft in the cave looking for diamonds. That's funny.
If the woman does not want to have the child, she should not be forced to have it.
Yes,
And she shouldn't- and she shouldn't
here's
go
the
through the
same thing.
trauma-
The woman
she should not
isn't
go
the
through
sole
the
owner of the
trauma of
child.
birth, too.
You need to have a man and a woman to create a child. Like they both have ownership.
Science.
Again, though, the man
I mean,
is
I hate
not
to break it
having
to you
go
that we're
through
not
the
asexual.
trauma- The man is not having to go through the trauma of giving
The
birth.
trauma, bro. The man literally has to work a 9 to 5
Yeah,
to
the man
provide
has to
his
listen to,
family.
hey, yo, this thing we got, it's gone now.
Giving birth is traumatizing.
I hold a belief.
Excruciating,
But what it sounds
excruciating
like,
pain.
to me, it sounds like you're putting a man's feelings
But either way, the pro-lifers advocate for the forced birth of the child. You know, so
Well, no, because we're not.
I think everybody should have accessibility to abortion, but I'm saying that you need to have both consenting parties in order to actually have it. Otherwise, you
course,
just have
and I agree
someone
with you,
claiming
and
my
I'm
body, my
pro-choice.
choice.
Yes.
So,
Yeah,
so
yes.
are you saying that women should be forced to go through excruciating pain for hours on end? That they should go through that
I
and
don't
go
think
through
it's
the trauma
hours
of
on
that?
end, and plus they have
It is.
like
It is.
they have meds for
My
that
mom
as
was
well.
pregnant with me
So
for around. My mom was pregnant
I'm
with
saying
me
that
for
men
around
shouldn't
12
be
hours.
a wagey for the rest of their life because the woman gets more say essentially. Like that's.
Okay, this is
hold on.
transitioning into a debate about sexism, not abortion.
Yeah.
Get closer to your mic because like it sounds like you're 70 feet away. Seriously, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, everyone needs to
but
get
I don't
better
know if
mics.
you're talking or not
I
talking.
feel like I'm not even on the pro-life
Worst is the
side, and I
crispest
feel
mic I've ever heard in my life.
I'm not even on the pro-life side, and I feel like we're arguing
We need
over
3 more
like
members.
forced insemination houses or something.
Random
Like,
announcement.
The government is not going to step in and impregnate women involuntarily. Like I
Making
feel
a
like
random
I wish
announcement.
they did.
We need 3 more members to hit 7,000 members for this server, so we can apply for discovery.
Okay, let's get back on topic. Abortion.
One thing I would say that I think both sides have to agree with, right, is how a lot of people are like, just like right now we're all like debating about abortion, right? But no one's like coming up with a solution to lower down abortion. For example, what like the one thing I would say
We've
is
had multiple solutions proposed.
Yeah,
People have
for
talked
me,
about,
I
like,
would say it's hypocritical for me to say this, and I don't have to be hypocritical to say this. But sometimes I don't get, like, for example, why are we debating abortion when we could like reform the foster care system or reform the adoption system, and so that way women don't have to get abortions if they don't want to, and they could just put the child up for adoption. That's like the one thing I just want to
that
say.
shouldn't be the rhetoric. That shouldn't be the rhetoric. You get a child and then throw it in an abortion. That shouldn't be the rhetoric, though.
I said adoption.
Oh well, adoption.
Well,
But that shouldn't be the rhetoric. It shouldn't be the rhetoric.
Here's the thing: is you have teenage kids hitting it raw, and then they end up getting pregnant. Have in schools is birth control and
like
condom.
I said before, it's not
You
birth
should
control.
hand that
Doesn't,
shit out like it's
I
candy.
hate to break it to you, but birth control just doesn't randomly stop pregnancy. I hate to break it to you. All right,
I think birth
birth
control is
control is used for other stuff. All right, it's not just used so people can hit it raw all the time. No, it's used for multiple things.
Why are you even debating this? Who gives a fuck?
Because you mentioned it. What the hell?
Because what does it matter if you use no condom or condom besides just preventing a pregnancy? Like, how does it actually affect you? Like, who cares? It stops pregnancies.
Dude, the biggest thing we could
It's a net positive.
At the same time, you have to realize how low sex education is in school.
That's true. No, I have to agree with you.
Literally, who cares about sex education? Just put on a Jimmy before you hit it.
I've read so many studies
sex
on
education is
this, on sex
actually, like,
education,
really important, though.
No, sex education is
Like,
important.
it's important. Don't get me wrong, but like, literally, the common sense solution is just put a rubber on before you hit.
But like, condoms only work like 90% of the time, though.
And get birth control too. Get
Okay, so
birth
then give
control.
the birth control.
Pull out
Then
and
lower the
condom. That's
prices.
literally 99% effective.
Alright, good. So lower down the price of both birth control. Then you need to lower down the price of birth
Playing
control,
Minecraft
which we
and
should
No, you
do.
just hand it out in schools like it's candy because these teenage kids are getting pregnant.
You should do that. I agree. You should hand out birth control, hand out condoms in schools. I agree with you on that one.
Yes,
I've
just
read
mass distribute them.
Not
I've
not
read
like candy,
so
though.
many
Not like
studies
candy, though.
on trying to reduce abortions
Sex education.
and having this argument over and over and over. And honestly, the thing that like just empirically or statistically seems like it would actually have the biggest effect on preventing unwanted pregnancies is like culturally lowering the age we normalize getting married. Like as that gets older, the number of unwanted pregnancies is going to get higher no matter what. It doesn't matter what you do with contraception.
I'm gonna keep it. I'm gonna keep it $1.50. Marriage in America is literally a joke. I'm gonna just keep it $1.50. It's a joke. I'm from Africa. Shout out to all my Africans. But what I've really noticed is not all. Like, don't get me wrong. Get a prenup. Please get a prenup. Protect your money. But what I've noticed about marriage is not. It's no more. Hey, that's my soulmate, that's my lover, that's my shorty. Now it's protecting my money, protect what I've earned throughout the years, and it's a joke. It's a joke. I'm gonna keep it $1.50.
Well, it's a joke and it's dying, but as it dies, people are going to get pregnant, like no matter what. Like it just hasn't worked well. Doing like contraception programs and stuff, it hasn't had a significant decrease. But when we normalize getting married at like 32 or whatever, then I mean, kids are gonna sleep with each other. It just happens, and some percentage of those kids are gonna get each other pregnant. So like, this is just something we're gonna be dealing with as long as the institution of marriage kind of dies in the United States or becomes like an old person buying a house together game or whatever.
So abortion isn't the solution. Fixing or rectifying the institution of marriage is the solution. Is that what you're trying to say?
It probably is. I mean, but we're extending the age of adolescence in a bunch of different ways. It's not just marriage,
for sure.
But our biology sexually is not like delaying with our cultural delay of adulthood. You know what I mean? None of us can change that. That just is what it is.
I think a big argument too is kind of the stigma around sex in general, where it's kind of like almost discreet. Like there's a lot of people who are like no sex until marriage, and I think that fundamentally that's kind of bad because like I know a couple people who didn't tell their parents so they could get birth control because they were lived in a super Christian household. And then a lot of them had scares and shit. So I'm saying in general, like we should really be concerned about the stigma around sex in general.
Yeah, I think the highest teenage pregnancy rate in the United States is the Bible.
Especially in this country, yeah, no doubt.
That's the whole point of teaching kids, like, hey, it's okay to have sex when you're young, so use protection. It's okay to get birth control and all this other stuff when you're young and in your teenage years, but you have to take the right procedures. And that's why it should be taught more.
We got a number one victory right, y'all.
Yeah, they should have it right inside the classroom. Here's some jimmies, here's some birth control.
Yeah, but 19... I think it's totally
I hope you know that.
I think it's totally unrealistic to expect 19-year-old girls to remember to take a pill at the same time every single day, and the efficacy doesn't seem good on that at all. And obviously,
listen, that's on them though.
There are people who do
Yeah, we got smartphones.
Right, but if you say it's on them, if you take that position, then you're basically on the pro-life side. Then you're making the
no.
pro-life
I'm
argument.
saying that you can have hand in hand. You can have pro-choice, but you can also have individualism. Like you can't just like if you give them all of the means to succeed, but they don't do it. That's on them. That's literally the definition of a meritocracy and individual nature.
So then, how would you argue against the point that if it's on them, then they're responsible for the outcome, which is the pregnancy?
Because you can then abort a child. I'm not against like aborting child. I don't think the state should enforce morality.
No, I know, but I don't understand how that point affects the issue of like abortion.
This is not like an era of tribalism where like I belong to one tribe or another. Like I can have multiple stances in both areas.
No, I know. I just don't understand how your stance could move someone from pro-life to pro-choice. Or like
I'm not trying to move anybody. I'm just trying to say the facts of the situation. Like both sides have validity. You can't just have like a tribal argument of ooga booga. They say this. Our tribe says this. Like that's not how it works.
I have a question I'd like to ask pro-choice people regarding Roe v. Wade.
All right.
So I asked this a while ago and never got a satisfactory answer. I've never really heard any strong rebuttal to this, but So for Roe v. Wade, according to Wikipedia, quote, the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment provides a fundamental right to privacy that protects a pregnant woman's liberty to choose whether or not to have an abortion. And the Due Process Clause, it's in the 5th and 14th Amendments. The 14th, it says, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. I've never understood how this applies to the woman, but not to the baby. Why do we apply the 14th Amendment to only one of the two parties involved?
I'm not going to lie.
I'd like to speak here. Due to scientific data, I'd like to explain it. A child does not gain sentience until after birth. That is how it works. It is physically impossible for them to gain sentience before birth.
At what point do they gain
There would be no way for them to
Before
consent.
the umbilical cord is cut? Like 7 months and 29 days? That doesn't make any
what I'm trying to
sense.
say is the brain doesn't actually really kick in, and they can't think for themselves until literally right after birth.
So if you can't
Dude,
think
I've met
for
a lot
yourself,
of
the
30-year-olds
14th
who
Amendment
can't
doesn't
think
apply
for
to you?
themselves.
Yeah, it's
Like
kinda
That's
weird.
true.
If we try to
But
say that the
that's not what
14th
I'm
Amendment
saying.
only applies to people with a certain level of mental capacity, then you're going to start denying disabled people access to life, liberty, and property.
I've got a
You
list
can't
of like
use a
6
mental
I didn't think about
argument.
that.
I'm
I
trying to
didn't think about
say
that.
is it if they were never actually born, then shouldn't we think about that?
No.
What does that have?
This
What
is
is
the
that?
gray
What
area
does that
that
mean?
we're talking about. If they can't consent to their existence, then what the heck is going on?
Funny people can't consent to things.
Yeah.
Ever heard of locked-in syndrome?
I mean, if the woman is in full control, it's I don't see the issue there. I mean,
I still vote for the both parties to just come to a consensus.
Yeah, like
Okay,
the whole women in
but do you
control
think
thing
there
is
should
kind
be
of
an
just a bullshit
exception if,
argument.
for example, it was a situation involving rape?
well, for the 14
I
Amendment.
mean, yeah,
Here's
you
a
can give
rape.
straw mans all
Here's
the
the
time.
rape thing again.
Like that's literally the definition of a
You
straw
have
man,
to take
dog.
that into our knowledge. You can't just pick it off. You're like, oh my god, rape thing again. Like, no, you have to take that into our knowledge.
Because it's such a common sense thing. You're trying to use this as a talking point when it's common sense.
Yeah.
It's literally the definition of tribalism.
I'm just asking for you guys to elaborate. That's all I'm requesting.
Elaborate on what exactly?
I mean, I think if someone rapes another person, they void all
Yeah,
responsibility
yeah,
to the
that's
child.
what I
Like,
think, too.
what?
It's a no-brainer. Yeah.
Otherwise,
Like,
I feel
no one's
both parties
contending
could
that,
have
right?
come to a consensus.
Yeah, but
I mean,
aren't-
that's the consensus, dog.
Aren't rapes like 0.1% of abortions in the United States? Like, I think we could all
Yeah, it's
concede to
extremely
that
low.
without it really affecting
I feel abortion is. I feel like abortion should be related to an absolute last resort. That's my stance on it.
No, dude, abortion should be there, but if you don't get an abortion after the first trimester, like I said, we should really recalculate what the first trimester is. But if you don't do after the first trimester, and if after you expand birth control and condoms, then it's a matter of individualism.
Yes.
It's like it's kind of on you at that point.
That's correct.
I don't understand the cutoff at the first trimester. Like if you were to show me a fetus at like a day before the first trimester ends and a day after it ends, I don't think I'd be able to tell you the difference between them. I
Because
think they
here's
would
the
look
matter. Here's the matter.
identical. How
Is
does
it on a
change?
general consensus is that consciousness begins in the first trimester, like at
There's a
right at the end
consensus
of it.
like that?
Yes, is that
Amongst
consciousness
whom?
begins at 8 to 9 weeks. If you want to look at medical studies, you can. Like that's
Okay.
I've read about it a couple before I came in here, and the general
But
consensus is that
that's an
consciousness is in that
average,
area.
right? Yeah, so like there's an area, and we say like on average consciousness. Assuming
I mean,
that's
you can
true, we're
debate
saying
what
on
the
average
pigment
it
of the
does.
sky is. Some say it's
Yeah.
cyan blue, some say it's
Okay.
navy blue. Like, who cares?
So assuming that's true, you're saying there's some range of time where on average most fetuses obtain consciousness.
Yes.
That's what you're saying?
Yeah.
That doesn't
Yeah,
apply
don't
to
look like
every
that.
single one though, right? Like there's some fetuses that won't, and there's some that will. Some will get it sooner. Some will
You're
obtain
right,
it
but
sooner.
we
Some will
should
obtain it
probably
later.
use a
I mean,
general
you
time frame.
can say that you can say that like for example, every person that brings a gun into the school isn't going to shoot a school up. But I mean, because some
understand
people
how it
do
relates.
it, I don't understand what you're saying. You're giving like one example and saying that's the general batch of apples.
That's precisely the
that's
problem.
a really
That seems
different
like what you're doing.
situation overall. Let's not get those two mixed up.
I mean, I think the clearest.
Somebody asked if what happens in the both parties scenario if the mother and father don't come to an agreement. What happens?
The woman gets to do
I
whatever
feel
she
like
wants
then
under
it's
U.S.
taken
law.
for-
Right?
Yeah, it goes
then
back to
it's
the woman.
botched.
Or
Then,
I feel like the
if there's
mother should have most
if
of
there's
the say,
no
but
agreement,
the father should have the ability to intervene.
if there's no agreement, for example, then you can come down to either a legal battle if it gets bad enough,
What I would say is you put the child up for
this is
adoption,
what's
that's what I would say.
preferable. If, for example, the woman doesn't want it but the man does, the woman then, for example, I would say, but even then you can't even force morality.
but
So
what
I
if
say
it
mostly
becomes
come down to a
man's
legal battle.
And then we're back into
Well,
tug of war.
when it
And then
comes
we're
to,
back
like-
into a tug of war.
When it comes to like the legal battle thing, right?
Yes.
Legal
How
battles could
bad
take,
does it have to get in order to get to the point of a legal battle about abortion?
but
Hold
also
on, are we
I
asking
mean,
how
if
it
the
is
woman
right
is
now,
being
or are we
irrational or the
asking
male's
how
being
it is
irrational.
So the reason why I would, on my opinion, argue against like legal battles is because legal battles could take months.
Yeah, they do in divorce
They
cases.
take months.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah,
think
we
I'm
still
pretty
have the
sure.
divorce cases.
I know about a legal battle that literally happened 2 years after what the event was.
Yeah,
So,
like you keep mentioning like
legal battles last a long time. All right.
Yeah, but it's better than just saying
Within
that all rights belong to the woman.
Within
Hey.
that time frame, the
Hey.
I'm
woman
not
could have
saying all
already
rights
given
should belong
birth.
to the woman.
Okay, I
But
want to
also,
bring
I'm
up.
saying,
when it comes
what
to-
if instead,
Mhm.
what if right after the child is just put up for adoption?
What
That
do
would
you mean?
work, but the problem is that state enforced morality, which I just fundamentally oppose.
True.
Well,
Or
I
what
want to
if
bring
like
up
the
one point
father
on
gets
this.
all the rights the child, and the mother just doesn't have to put up with it.
That's like I said, another scenario where it could work, but I just don't. I, from a personal standpoint, don't believe in the state having any regard in morality, because I just think it leads to people like that Cuomo guy talking about degeneracy and stuff, which is just, I think, bullshit.
No. And just adding on, everyone just has to understand that some people aren't fortunate to be in situations where they're not only financially stable to have children, but also like both parties are like in agreement with pretty much everything. There's not really any fighting. Just whatever helps not only them, but whatever helps the child develop. That's all. I will just like. Some people just aren't fortunate of that.
Can I bring up one point from the male side? If this were like the problem with what you're saying is, if we had planned on having a baby, she got pregnant, and then decided to get an abortion, and I could legally prevent her from doing so, then even though that like sounds good, she's still carrying the baby. So for all you know, if you say I'm down to be a single dad and whatever, I just want you to have the kid, I mean, she could just start drinking a bunch of booze, she could start smoking cigarettes, like she could fuck up that kid so beyond
you put her in prison,
Great
dog.
point no one's brought up too.
You put her in prison, dog.
But that's harming the child. That's harming the child.
Right?
I mean, yeah.
Oh yeah,
yes,
you can have
but
surrogates. Yeah,
people
you can
do
have
fucked up
surrogates.
shit. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, if they do fucked up shit like Jeffrey Dahmer, you throw him in prison.
That is true. You throw him in prison.
Dahmer
if you do
taking
that.
a sanity plea?
I think so. It's sad.
as a society
also
in general, we do
behind
not
that.
hold women legally accountable for things very often. Like even with false rape accusations, those girls who sent the Duke lacrosse guys to prison and it turned out to be bullshit. Like we never sent them to prison. I mean, as a society, I don't think you're gonna pull society towards arresting women.
How many, okay, what percentage of rape claims are false, and what percentage is actually taken seriously by law?
This is a little bit of a tangent here from the actual issue.
I mean, in
Considering
general, in the United States,
a very small percentage of abortions.
Elephant in the room here. Let's address the elephant in the room here.
It looks about.
All right, yeah. Let the elephant in. Let the elephant in.
Sage, it looks like it's at about 4.5%.
Just address the elephant in the room.
Here's the thing.
Very low percentage.
We can all agree, right? We can all agree that besides arguing like state enforced morality, that the argument of abortion is kind of a talking point at this point. Like it's literally like issues because we want to talk about this stupid issue.
Stupid.
It's stupid. Like we have big issues. We have people in West Virginia living like they live in a third world country, but meanwhile we care about if some person has ownership to a piece of cells. Like who gives a fuck?
I mean, if you think it's a human, you really will.
I'm kind of with him on that one.
Don't just call it a piece of cells.
People literally start.
Well, it is.
I would like to.
You can say that for literally any person.
Biologically, it is.
I would like to suggest having a debate about whether or not we should have a Federal Reserve at some point in the future. That's my. big point.
Yeah.
Not tonight,
Federal Reserve of
but sometime
fetuses or
later
what?
this week, I would love to have that debate. I'd love to facilitate it. I
Hey,
want to
yo,
hear
add me
both
back.
sides. Economics, something I have a deep interest
Yes,
in, but I
so do
I
I.
don't know a lot about it.
Only the Austrians are right, and Chicago and Keynesians are dumb.
But we can like
I can debate that
right,
too
that like
because
abortion is
Chicago in general.
I used to be an Austrian economist until I got my head out of my ass.
I'd love to have a debate. If that ever happens, I would really enjoy it.
I used to be a conservative until I realized what I was doing was kind of meh.
I'm honestly like I've come down to just an understanding that humans will do whatever they need to just cope with death. So whatever y'all are doing, keep yourselves happy till you kick the bucket.
Dude,
Agreed.
It's really you kind of realize that it's kind of bad. Like you're like,
yeah,
what the fuck Discord right now? Like I'm finna die.
Hey yo, just keep yourself happy.
Oh, wait, before everyone finishes, can I just say, like, this seems like everyone just, like, went way over, and I was like, okay, I feel like it's nearly done, but just a hypothetical, like, solution. You can say to it if you want, but, like, you know, how you have, like, marriage prenups and whatnot, and, like, the fact that because I come from a religious background, and like I'm not allowed to date anyone until like practically marriage. So
That's
like
a
with the
cult.
cases, yeah, well,
that's just a cult.
Yeah. But like living in the Western world and seeing like all my friends since like high school or even primary school, like dating each other and then even like sleeping together and whatnot. And I found that so fascinating because like most of them were also Christian and other religious things, but like when they get into a relationship, they should also like just have like a mini prenup for like when the situation gets into like someone getting pregnant, and the like a backup plan, like game plan for when that shit happens, so that when it does happen, that everyone's like, okay, so this is what I agree on my part, and this is what you agree on your part. Like it could change when you get older, but like when it actually happens, especially if you're like 16 or 15 in high school and you get pregnant, and it's like, well, this is what I said when I started dating you. This is so you know how I felt about it, and I'm not like going to go behind your back because you already know what I signed up for, like in a way.
Hey, Ivy.
I mean, here's the thing. Is that prenups are I sound like a good idea.
That's all important to say.
And I just think that fundamentally prenups can be like, it's one of the problems like what Work was talking about with marriage in the United States. Is while yes, there's a lot of fucked up scenarios where where like she just takes everything, or where the man takes everything. But the problem is that you're preparing for divorce and failure. Like I'm a person who fundamentally believes. I'm a person who prepares for.
That's true. No, it is true.
Prepares for.
Look it up. It's about half.
Like,
half get divorced.
The rest of their life.
Yes, it should just be half and half. That's it. Don't have to prepare for it. There's just half and half.
No. It's not in like marriage terms. It's just like as in like when you start dating someone. Because I realized
even that you're planning on failure.
Yeah.
No,
you know
planning a safety net.
But the safety net is expecting the
That's
fall.
why it's a joke in America. It's a joke.
It's like okay. For example, Ivy, you're on the edge of a balcony, right? And you're looking off onto it, and you're like, let's put a safety net down there. Why are you putting a safety net down there if you're not going to fall? Like you're expecting to go off of the edge a bit. Like you're expecting to. Like why do you need that if you're not like? Why do you want to jump? Like, what's the point of being on top of there? Like, I don't understand it.
Exactly. But
please
get a prenup. Everyone, please get a prenup, though. Please get a prenup.
Can I get in here for 2 seconds? So 2 things. First of all, I think it's very strange that the men in this debate are the ones arguing against prenups because the legal structure in the United States is so favored financially towards women in divorce that you guys should be the ones concerned because she's financially incentivized to divorce you. But Ivy, on your point, I think in a world of perfectly rational people, that sounds like a great idea, but the hormonal, everything that happens physically with women when they get pregnant, like I don't believe that any previous decision that woman had made or any previous contract she had signed would hold at all. Like emotions and feelings about things go all over the place in early pregnancy. So I just don't think it would actually work. I think trying to hold someone to a contract they had signed before getting pregnant would be nearly impossible.
Okay, I have something to say now. I feel proper sex ed may help in this situation because from things I've seen, proper sex ed helps reduce teen pregnancy and need for abortion by a large margin.
Okay, the thing is that I've noticed in this VC a lot is that a lot of you keep bringing up the law as in that's the end all, as the beginning of an argument. But the thing is, as a judge would describe, you only go to court if you cannot settle it by yourself. And if you're not mature enough to talk with the woman about whether they want an abortion or not, because at the end of the day, it is their body, and you go to court about it, then you lose all eligibility to call yourself a mature human being because you had to go to the court about it and you couldn't accept their decision. You see, I'm all for like talking about it with your spouse or anything like that if you're in a relationship. But if you're not in a relationship, and whether it's rape or anything else, and or you're young or you're not, or you don't feel like that you're in the same mental maturity, right? Then you shouldn't really be going like, oh yeah, we should all have a decision in this, and it should go into a legal system. Because at the same time, before you go to court, you're supposed to talk about it beforehand. And if you're not able to come to a mature agreement, or you can't accept the woman's decision or anything like that, then you've already failed at making a decision. You've already failed of talking to him.
You know, I never thought about it like that. You really do have a point.
At the same time, what Anti-Federalist said, even if both parties aren't able to come to a mutual agreement, there'll have to be that taking more further legal action into who gets who or what gets decided and stuff like that. And it's just going in circles. You're literally just going in circles. That's why, like, the whole both parties should come to an agreement that, yeah, whatever, let's just get this over with type
If
vibe.
even one of them doesn't want a child, then I don't
abortion.
think either of them should have a child at this point.
I think we should just like stop talking about the actual thing after abortion, because we're talking about abortion itself, and we keep walking over the fact. Everybody in here keeps walking over the fact about what a woman wants in this situation. I have never
what
heard.
does a man want?
Hold on. You, all of you have been speaking about what a man wants, whether you are against it or whether you are. Can y'all
This
stop
would affect the
interrupting me?
woman more, and thus we gotta really discuss it from that perspective.
Y'all keep interrupting me. Can y'all stop? Okay. Now, as I was saying, all of you keep talking about whether a man wants, whether you are against abortion or whether you are with abortion, but none of you have actually been thinking about what a woman wants. All you've been thinking about is what you want in a relationship, not what you both want. As much as y'all say that we want equal say in it, y'all aren't talking about equal say. Y'all are only talking about, hey, yo, what if the man wants this or what if the man wants that? If you're going to talk about the equal say, you also have to talk about the woman, not just the male. See, I get that, like, a lot of the times, a lot of people don't want a guy to speak up about that, and I get that. But at the same time, you can't talk about equality if you're not being equal.
Hey, Sexy Kirby, I want to respond to that by saying currently in the world we live in, if everything stays exactly as the status quo is, the woman has 100% control about whether a child gets born or not.
I'm actually going to politely ask you to please think about this a bit differently.
Point. Regardless of whether a woman has more power here or not, I'm not saying I disagree. I'm not saying I agree or either. I'm saying that if you're going to talk about equality, you can't just go, oh yeah, man this, what a man wants, a man this. Because we've all already agreed that at the end of the day, they are both parents, right? So if y'all already agree about that, you'll need to also talk about the mom, not just y'all.
No, I know, but if we're talking about policy changes, then there would be no policy change to give women more of a decision in an abortion happening or not, because they already have that full decision.
You see, it's not as simple as who gets more decision and whatnot. It's a decision that can be made through all types of complicated. It's not as like what you said or what somebody else said as ooga boogie, this side, this, that. You can't just go like, oh yeah, the guy has less say in here, so we need to give them more say. How about instead of that, we come to a compromise between the both, like what a woman wants, because people do have a point. That is her body. She does get to decide what she wants at that. But at the same time, she does need to be held accountable for her own responsibility.
No, I understand what you're saying, and I agree with you completely in a personal relationship. I'm talking about when it comes to a political debate about policy, I don't know what you would debate in terms of political or like government policy in terms of women's say in abortion, other than just leaving things the way they are.
And if it's political, why is it just
Federalist?
Let me
would you please step down from the podium for a bit?
I'm gonna listen. I've got something to add. Right? Want to know what I got to add?
Yeah.
You're playing Minecraft in a cave looking for diamonds.
Okay,
Funny. I'm in the same cave looking for miners.
Let him speak.
Sexual attraction to miners is major.
Oh.
Word up.
All right. Okay, well, back to what you were saying, Sexy Kirby. I understand what you're talking about on both parties have to, again, mutual, just come to a consensus on just this whole ordeal. And not only just looking at the man, but also looking at what the women wants. But it's like, I've said this before and I'll say it again. Even if the child was to be born with not being X'd off or Control Alt deleted, all right, that relationship is toxic. I will say it as many times as I want to. I have friends who have told me my mom didn't want me, and they live by themselves. They live with their dad or something because the relationship that they grew up in was heavily like, it was disgusting. It was gross. personally, I'm glad they got out of that relationship because imagine trying to stay with a woman for I don't know how many years you'll stay in like school or whatever, but like what, 12 years knowing that, yeah, I didn't want you. And yeah, you're just going to have to deal with that fact that I was going to, but I didn't have the choice to. And yeah. And unfortunately, some people get led down the wrong road. They go to certain gang violences, or even, like I said, there was you can watch a video about this too. There were two like orphan kids that actually fought some police officers on some property. They found some guns and just started like going crazy. And that's just what happens where the neglect is there, right? I'll say I know I repeat myself sometimes, but a relationship requires two people 50-50 100%. If there is only 50%, right, and there's not something else to fill in that that other 50%, there's only chaos, and that child is led to believe that he has to fill in that 50% in the wrong way.
Okay, and I completely
Okay, but
understand that.
I'm just going to
But
say
at the
something
same,
that probably will sound like a stupid idea, but I feel like there should be a way to gauge whether you're fit to have kids or not. But
that's already a thing.
Yeah. But
Are you saying
people who aren't
government
really
like
fit to have kids
licenses to have kids?
still end up having kids, and that is kind of the leading issue in this situation.
Okay, so basically, this isn't really about abortion in the sense. It's basically not even in the political sense. It's about wanting because I am not one to be on either side at very much. It's just that in this debate, I'm noticing this. Like I get where what's his name again? Whatever his name was, that he was going on a whole like thing about how that child's gonna grow up or do anything like that. Fun fact. Someone saying that, oh yeah, my mom didn't want me, is not a gigantic part. Sure, it's a bad part, but that's not a gigantic part of their home life. It could be anything from that mom and dad might not want to be together anymore. It might be from a bad relationship with
Abuse.
each other's family. Okay. I didn't interrupt
Abuse,
anyone here.
the leading cause of creation of serial killers. So yeah, that's a big one.
Can I speak now? Thank you. Now, as I was saying, it is not just abortion. It is many other things. We can't just use abortion to go like, oh yeah, up for a long time. Because a lot of the people in America or in a lot of other countries, whatever the hell, that allow abortion or anything, they usually think about, hey, we might want an abortion, just like a passing thought, just like, hey, we might not be ready, but they have it anyways, and they're happy with having their child. They have a happy family and everything. That can't be used as a census to say that, like, oh yeah, they can't be aborted, they can't do anything like that. And at the same time, like I said earlier, when you say 50-50, or if you say equality, sure, you may want men to have more say in it, and that's perfectly okay. I'm not saying any of you are wrong for that. I'm saying that if you're going to have this conversation, you're going to have to talk about both ends and the abortion. You're gonna have to look at both ends. When you debate, you have to look at it from the other people's side and decide if you agree with that, which I don't see a lot of people doing. How about like a girl, right? She has a child with this guy. It's not a planned one. It's by accident. And she doesn't feel like she's ready to be a parent. She doesn't really want to be a parent, but the guy wants to be a parent. They have a civil conversation, and she's like, okay, yeah, I'm going to put my foot down. I don't really want to have a child. I am not ready, and I don't think we are both ready. We can try again later. It's not like it's going to be like, oh yeah, if they have an abortion, that means that they'll never have a child again. If they have an abortion right then, whether it's before like the 5-month period, because that's when they start like gaining sentience. If it's before that, then that's okay, and that's as long as they can wait. But if you can't agree with that, if you cannot go to a civil conversation with your girl and think for her well-being or her mental state or anything like that, and you think of a child that hasn't even been born yet, a human being that hasn't even been born yet, then wouldn't that be unethical? Because you're basically forcing someone else to have a child that you already discussed about as mature individuals, mature adults, not children, mature adults, because children regardless of whether they consent to having sex or not, I don't think that they should be having kids. I'm talking about solely adults right now. If you are two consenting adults and you decide to not have a child, then that is a personal issue. And if the mom disagrees with having a child, then you can't stop her. That is her body. And if the guy disagrees with having a child, which most of the time they don't ever actually discuss it before they actually have the actual child. If you don't want to have the child, discuss it with the girl, and if she wants the child, then come to a compromise. Come to compromise where you want to adopt or anything like that. It all comes down to compromise. Now, in regards to the things that are not about relationships, whether it's rape, sexual assault, anything like that, or maybe they're way too young, like they're like 16 or 17. They should be allowed the basic right to be a child. If you are a child, let them be a child. They do not need a child in their life when they haven't even finished growing up. Now, haven't really heard any female voices here talking without getting over talked in. And I'd like to actually see a female's take on the matter and not just a lot of men going like, blah, 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 blah. We don't have enough choice. Because even though that is valid, all right, that is perfectly valid, we need to have both points, not just one.
Any guys want to come up here to talk?
Yeah. Does any actual person that supports this sort of girl wants to come up?
I'm female and I completely agree with everything you're saying, but right now I don't have any further points to add.
Okay. Does anybody else have any further points? Because the other ones already left. They left because they didn't really get a chance to speak.
So what do you want our opinion on?
Okay. What is your views on abortion? Whether should a man have any choice?
I haven't been here that long. Maybe I've been here for about half an hour. And this entire time I've been here, I haven't heard anyone mention the actual facts of how disruptive, painful being pregnant is. I have a friend who's a teen mom, and every time she comes into work, she's telling me, she's like, oh, I can't even control my pee. I have this, I have that. And meanwhile, her baby daddy just sits around all day doing nothing. There's the topic of fourth degree tears, which, if you're not aware, is when essentially, without getting too graphic, the birth canal tears all the way to the anus. And you can imagine how horrific and traumatic that experience is. And of course, even after being repaired, your reproductive and urinary functions are not completely intact. So why haven't you mentioned anything like that? Because obviously the chance of a man experiencing any of those issues during the pregnancy is 0%. Like, why is that not important enough for you to bring up?
Okay, so Sexy Kirby was wondering what our opinion on this was, and I'm going to say my opinion on this is that I feel like women should at least have the choice over their own body, because it's not anybody else's right as to whether what we do with our own body. And it's rigged because the people who vote over this issue are basically all white, middle-aged men.
Let me tell you something. I'm going to interrupt you right there. That might be the dumbest thing I've heard. The fact that you got to discount the pro-life argument just because, and that's not even true, by the way. A lot of black people and Hispanics who come from these religious households oppose it. So let me tell you something about that. This idea the woman should have the choice. It's not her body. That's a distinct set of DNA right there with the baby. So no, she shouldn't be able to do anything.
Genetics. Okay, hold
your
on.
point flat out doesn't exist.
It's like
95-5 to the woman.
Abortion didn't exist, that would be great. But we live in a world where rape and molestation is too common for it not to exist. Women should have the choice to be able to not want to have. You're not mentally able to have a baby right now.
Before we go on,
That should be your choice. You should be able to have that choice.
I'd like to expand on that topic. Someone said that.
Well, excuse me, really quickly. These people are the same people who say rape and molestation are a problem, are the same people who support soft on crime policies that let rapists and murderers go free. If you really
I don't
cared,
think you understand how crime works, man. You're
would never let a
the amount of
rapist free.
misconstruing and
What the
bullshit
hell
you
do you
just
mean?
stuttered in
Oh,
5
calm
seconds
down, brother.
is unbelievable. Okay.
Okay,
The
yeah,
soft on
whatever.
crime
That's just
stuff
how
is
the
about
world
nonviolent
works.
drug offenses and shit like that, and about reducing a prison system that
it's
just
not.
keeps funneling nonviolent people into the same thing for cheap labor and to keep black people in jail. Claiming it's
It seems
racism
like you
stuff
probably
is the
study that
dumbest
every
Okay,
day.
lie I've ever heard
stop?
in
We're
my
getting
life.
off of topic now. As what y'all did right now, that was just. Okay, so look, what they mean by it is their body. They don't mean, hey yo, this baby is me. They mean that it's coming out of their body. They're the ones getting in pain. Their parts are getting harmed. Their body is getting harmed. That's their body. They're not saying that the baby is their body. They're saying that their body is their body. They're not saying that the baby is their body. Y'all
So,
are just going
I just-
off on a tangent on something else.
For some baseline for this, I just wanted to just interject this. So, 24% of women in the United States say abortion should be illegal in all circumstances, compared to 18% of men. 24% of women say abortion should be legal in all circumstances, compared to 25% of men. 50% of women say it should be legal in certain circumstances, compared to 56% of men. Just to give us an idea of where the genders stand.
Yeah, and I completely agree, because like this abortion thing, no one should decide that for another person. And if it's a relationship, anyone that's outside of the relationship doesn't have a right to decide it. And I do agree that there are some cases that you can talk about in regards to the people. But what we are not going to do is argue with each other. That's like, oh yeah, pro-life, and if you're not having anything that's always pro-life, then you're wrong. Or oh yeah, pro-choice, and if you're not doing anything that is pro-choice, then you're wrong. If that is what you're doing.
Well,
And
the
if I
argument
think
was
something's
whether
wrong,
abortion
I'll
should
say
be legal
something's
or
wrong. I'm not going to reserve myself. That's ridiculous. The fact that we have to compromise, that's not true. We don't.
That is what a
have to
debate is.
compromise.
You talk to each other and try to find a solution. You don't just keep arguing. That's an
Well,
argument.
hold on for a second. It's not. We have an audience right here, 195 approaching 200. The reason I'm debating you guys and everyone here is not to convince y'all. I'm not going to do that. I don't think that's going to happen. And we're not policymakers, so we're certainly not reaching a compromise. It's to win the hearts and minds of people who may be on the fence. Those sorts of things. I do not care about the opinions of the debaters. I love it. I like conversing. I like debating. I like arguing. But at the end of the day, it's not about us. It's about them. That's the point. So no, we don't need a compromise. No, we don't need to reach a middle ground.
Did you just say you don't care about the opinion of the debaters?
Leave if you don't care.
Yeah, then leave. What are you here?
Dude, if you're gonna do grandstand, get the hell out. No one cares.
Context outside of the context of the debate. I do not.
Yeah, because
He's the only pro-life person in here. Sexy Kirby's compromise position was just for abortion to be completely legal and up to each individual. So at least he's
That is
someone to
not
argue
what I
against.
mean.
We don't have another person to take the opposing position. So
Yeah, but he's
I
not operating
support
in
you
good faith.
staying here, Cuomo.
He's not operating in good faith. If he's gonna operate in good faith, he could say, but he literally just said, I will not operate in good faith. It's like literally, it's literally the equivalent of going into the middle of a store and
Don't
saying, I'm
stutter.
gonna
Don't
shit myself
stutter. Don't stutter.
on the shit on the
Let me
floor.
just tell you something.
And then no one throwing the guy out.
Now y'all are talking about stutters. Okay.
Listen, what you need to understand is it's not about this compromise. We're just talking about these things. I say something, you contest it. You say something, I contest it. We don't need to be friends. I'm not saying we should be mean to each other and just call each other all these nasty names. I'm just saying there's no need to reach a solution at the end, right? We don't need to do that. That's not necessary.
I don't think you know what a debate is then. The debate isn't just throwing ideas out there and not receiving any feedback. That's not what a debate is. If you're looking to just
Sound like a
share your
douche, but I
opinion-
actually have been involved in academic debate for years. I mean, and I know that sounds like super douchey, but that's just not true. So I don't think you know what you're talking about.
Academic debate is not debate. Academic debate is running someone over at words. We're not. If you want to do that, just go somewhere else. Go on the middle street. Go on a college campus. Go
Is
yell
that
at
what
some
you do?
20-year-old.
You do policy or something? How'd you know that? Listen,
I don't know.
what
I've
wanna
gone
say
through a
is-
couple of big things with this kind of stuff.
Though,
so
we have different
I think I know what I'm talking about, man. You just sound like you're just here to be a dick, okay? That's what you sounded
I'm here to
like.
tell you. I'm
You're
here
here
to
for
tell
a
you the pro-life
discussion.
position.
You're not being a discussion. You're trying to do a
Look at this
college
guy.
debate, not a college debate, like a high school debate. That's argue about.
This
All right?
not even
You
high
want to
school
do that,
debate.
get
It's
out.
far too informal.
Ultimately, most online
Hey, I love
debates end up, becoming very off topic, and a lot of the people end up becoming infantile. I'm not saying any of the people like that are in here are being that way, but what I'm saying is that, I mean, it's online. You can't expect much more from, random people online, in all honesty.
Guys,
that guy sounded like Jared Taylor, like 100% sounded like him. Like, I don't know.
Is there anybody who's pro-life in here that we can have a conversation with?
I am pro-life.
I think I lean towards pro-life.
I am proudly
Okay,
pro-life.
I want to hear some opinions.
Okay, let's Etarazia, because the only woman who said it. So let's all shut up.
What about me?
I think that women should have the right to choose for their own body. A point that I heard earlier which was a little while ago, but that both parties should sign off on it. And I feel like that could be a good thing. And then they also said that unless it was the case of rape, but I think that a lot of rape cases go uncharged, and so someone's rapist may be uncharged and could, in that event, have a say over the abortion. And
well, I mean, ultimately, it's like what do you do with these like weird like pedophiles and rapists and all this, right? It's like the thing is, it's like we actually punish these people, right?
Travis Scott was the best part of 2020.
You're right.
No, you're wrong. Anyways.
Hey guys, real quick, I gotta go to bed. I gotta be up for work tomorrow, but I really appreciate the discussion and everyone who added to it. And yeah, have a good night, guys. It was fun.
Thank you for the points you brought up.
Good night.
Good night.